Hi Sagittarius, this is Lee at Fresh Astrology. How are you? You get to see the blue glare of my glasses because I'm going to be reading a lot during this. But happy New Year and happy first quarter of 2019, even though we may not be quite there when you see this, but it's fast upon us and it's fun to look ahead a little bit. So before I get started with the reading, if you look below, I'll have links, and if they're not there immediately, they'll be there eventually. Sometimes it takes me a couple of hours to get the links in there, but you can go look at earlier videos to get the links. I have a holiday special on pricing, as I do pretty much every year. So it's a great time to purchase a reading and a coaching session. You get a discount. If you're a previous client, whether it's coaching or astrology, you can get your most recent price if it's within the last 2 years. And if you're a recent client before the last 2 years and I haven't seen you in a while, you can get like sort of the price point I had maybe a year ago, and I would honor that price for you. But I just want to give back to clients who've been there for me, so you can keep the earlier price. So also the 2 courses that I have coming up in January are for people who want to learn astrology and maybe practice it. Maybe you already practice it, or maybe you want to. It's also for tarot readers who borrow astrology. It would, I think, help any reader bring in a more coaching style to their read, and also it's a way of learning how to think about the person you're reading to. So the first course is about how to give a love reading, and how do you think about the person, you know, on the other side of the table or the other side of the, you know, screen. How do you heal that person or support them in a way that feels good and positive and does no harm? And so that's a 2-week class, and you'll work with me and your fellow students to learn how to bring a coaching style and more compassion to a love reading. And it's not that everybody out there isn't already compassionate, but there are certain specific tools and mindsets that you can adopt that make sure you're doing what you would like to do, which is to help. And sometimes our intentions are good, but if we don't have the correct tools or training, we even though we want to help and we think we're helping, we can actually do harm. And of course, we're not always going to be perfect, but if we have tools and are very mindful, we can help support people and even help them heal as readers. So that's course 1. Course 2 is a broader version of that, where I teach how to bring a coaching style in general to any astrology reading or even a tarot reading counts. We're going to focus more on the coaching and less on the astrology. So a lot of people have asked me, like, if I'm not expert in astrology, can I still take this course? And the answer is yes, you can, because we're going to focus a lot more on the coaching. But you may learn something about astrology as we go, because we will use charts to do the course. So if you have questions, feel free to email me. I'm happy to do like a very short consult call with people who'd like to know, especially about the longer course, because you might just have questions. All right. Let's see, was there anything else I wanted to add about that? Oh, also, Tribe below. Come join us at Tribe if you are a woman over 40 and you want to reinvent, recreate yourself, especially through what you do for a living. Tribe is a growing community and growing every day. We'd love to have you be a part of it. So join us there. That's my other business. So Sagittarius, let's look at January. I'm going to just read to you like the prominent transits and aspects going on in January, and then we'll move over to the chart. So January 1, we have Jupiter working with the nodes. We have Mercury entering Capricorn. We have an eclipse on the 5th, and that is a new moon in Capricorn. January 6th, we have Uranus direct, another big deal. We have January 7th, Venus enters Sagittarius, that's you. So having Venus in your sign is always quite nice. January 9th, Jupiter is working with Uranus. Jupiter's, your patron planet, is all over the place, as you may feel like you're all over the place in this month. A lot's happening very quickly for you. January 13th, Jupiter working with Neptune. January 19th, Uranus working with Chiron. January 20th, Sun enters Aquarius. January 21, full moon in Leo, and that's a total lunar eclipse. We'll talk about that some more. That's a fellow fire sign, Leo, so it will impact you somewhat, and we'll talk about how in a minute. January 24, Mercury enters Aquarius. January 31, Saturn is working with Neptune. We also see Neptune being kind of active in this time. It's because it's in Pisces. In this time of year, things start to move through Pisces, but we've also got, you know, some aspects lining up, like Saturn with Neptune, and Jupiter with Neptune. So it's an interesting time of Neptune as well, and we'll talk about that. So, January, the eclipses, we'll focus more on the eclipses in January because people usually want to hear about that. Many other important things are happening, but the eclipses tend to dominate the news. So the first one is in Capricorn, which takes place in your second house. And the second house represents many things. It can show long-term relationships and like marriage, but it's mostly about how you earn and spend money in your value system. If it applies in your lifetime right now where there are marital issues that are more extreme, then you may see activity here. So extreme would be like a marriage breaking apart, a marriage forming, you know, so an engagement, a marriage forming, or a very long-term relationship forming can happen here. It's a time for many Sagittarius people, which we've discussed, when you are really focused on career, and it's changing and evolving steadily, slowly, consistently, but you're going to be in a completely new place than you were 10 years ago, even last year. You're just really evolving at a very profound level, the kind of work you will be doing to earn money, and also how you spend, how you think about money, the flow of money. So it is a time to work on your value system, including your self-worth, which will have an impact on your net worth. So the way you feel about yourself is directly linked to your money situation. It doesn't mean that, I mean, there are people who have low confidence, who have a lot of money due to other issues, but as a rule, it's like the way you feel about your money. Your contentment with your money situation is directly proportional to your contentment with yourself. So you could have a lot of money and be very unhappy about your money situation. And that would be more related to your unhappiness with yourself than it would be to the actual amount of money. Does that make sense to you? If not, Tribe has a great money course you can take, because we work on this a lot. It's really working on your relationship to yourself and your money, and learning how they connect to one another. Anyway, this is just an ongoing lesson for you right now. You do have Jupiter in your sign, as most of you know, and in this month of January, Venus comes in and works with Jupiter in your sign. So money, it is a time when money could be flowing toward you, and there's just an extraordinary amount of luck. It could be in love. This luck could be showing up in your romantic life. It could be showing up at work. It definitely could be showing with money possibilities. Money could definitely be flowing to you, and you're just looking good during this time. You're coming across with the light of Venus, and people can see it. Even if you can't, people can see it. But generally people feel pretty good. They just feel that softer, nicer, gentler, the kind of interesting kind of equilibrium that comes with Venus. It's not a total, it's not a stasis, like, but it's an equilibrium that kind of floats like this. That emotionally, it's like an emotional register that kind of goes up and down. That's the kind of equilibrium I'm talking about. So it's not like just this inanimate object of feeling good, but it's a movable quality. So this is, when I say that, it's more like your emotional sea, your ocean of emotion. But I think January is a really good time for Sagittarius. Really good time. Your birthday's already passed, but it's almost, and your birthday month was pretty good too, but this is almost like even better. So I think January is quite a good time for you. And this whole year is going to be a year of expansion and growth for you as an individual. And people will be wanting to give you things. People will want to help you, give you a hand, give you more money, which is a great place to be. So happy birthday. So let's get back to these eclipses. So you have the new moon. I think there's some kind of new start with work in January. There's something new is beginning at that time. And it may not be as dramatic as a new job or a new company and big change, but I would definitely think you get a raise or more money or something. And it wouldn't go unnoticed. So it's a pretty definitive new start of some sort, a new project for some of you. The phase of launching a business or a project is when you kind of put it out there. It's not in development anymore. It's kind of being put out there. So if you paint paintings and you've been working on a series of paintings behind the scenes, this is when you would show things. So it's a great time to show your stuff, show your work during January. And that's kind of what that new moon eclipse is about. Show your work, show who you are, show what you've been working on. The total eclipse in Leo has more to do with, well, there's several things. I mean, we can look at all the themes that go on with the 3rd and 9th house because it's going to vary depending on the Sagittarius. There's a lot to do with school here. There could be some kind of definitive ending with school. But again, it could be the end of a phase. So, you know, it could be like a graduation. It could be like finishing a course. It could be, well, there's an interesting way I've been describing this because it's an eclipse, there's a funny quality to this one. So normally what I would say with a full moon is there's also this possibility of things coming to light where, you know how we were saying show your work? This would be like show your stuff at school. So you might be the student, you might be the teacher, but you're showing your stuff, you're showing your talent, and things can come into the light of day under the sun and or under the full moon, which was, you know, reflecting the sun, and you get this full light on a topic that's legal or about learning, teaching, learning, possibly publishing related, like a book or a blog, and things coming to light. But there's this funny quality where if you can kind of picture the yin-yang symbol, that Chinese yin-yang symbol, where you have like half of it being dark, half of it being light, and inside the dark half you have this little tiny light seed, and inside the light half you have this little tiny dark seed. That's kind of like a total lunar eclipse. In real life it would be something like, you know, so just think of think of a legal case, think of a publishing scenario, think of like a classroom situation where either you're the teacher or student, where you actually want to, for possibly very, very good reasons, want to conceal and not completely show, not totally show your stuff. So there's some things where you're keeping some things a little bit hidden for a reason, and then later they'll come to light. The other piece of this is that when you want to keep things hidden, where things have been concealed or you've wanted to keep things concealed, they come to light. So it can go either way, just like that yin and yang. It's either the light situation or the dark situation. So there's some concealment, some coming to light. So because of the houses of information are here, information may come to light about you. You may shed light on some information. Depending upon your age and your goals, some of you may be making decisions around school and what you want to do with school, depending on your age. So that's the eclipse scene. Because Leo is a fellow fire sign, I would say that the total lunar eclipse is going to be pretty meaningful to you. Something around that time that maybe comes to an end, or where you switch gears or you make a transition, is pretty meaningful. It's a meaningful transition in your life. And I think it has to do with a part of you showing who you are, where you're going. There are going to be some lucky developments this year. Just trust the year. There may be some romantic, project-related developments, maybe some scheduling, like the way you do your schedule. Something's changing for you in this first part of the year. And again, just depends on your age and where you are currently as to what that change means. But there are some money implications. I think a lot of you are getting lucky with money. So let's move on to February. In February, February 3rd, we have Venus entering Capricorn. Again, there's that money coming in to your actual money house. So money could be flowing in I think a nice way in February. February 4th, new moon in Aquarius. February 10th, Mercury enters Pisces. February 14th, Valentine's Day, we have Mars entering Taurus. So it's a sexier kind of, more romantic Valentine's Day than others, perhaps. February 18th, Jupiter working with the nodes again. February 18th, Chiron enters Aries. And Aries, a fellow fire sign, this is relevant to you, more so maybe than other signs. February 18th, Sun enters Pisces. February 19th, full moon in Virgo. So let's go back and look at this stuff with Chiron. What's going on with Chiron? Okay. So, Chiron is moving into your 5th house of romance, creative projects, children. So there is this little romantic theme going on for many Sagittarius, where there's been a lot happening there, a lot of changes happening in the romantic world, and this is over the last 8 years, many changes. And there's been kind of a focus there because Mars has been there. And now with Chiron coming in, some of you, if you've been dating, you may have, there's several things that could happen. So one is you might find that if you're just dating here and there, so this is not really about a long-term relationship necessarily, but somebody, if you've just been dating a little bit, that relationship could change in March. And it just depends on you and that person and kind of their personalities. You yourself, as a Sagittarius, have a lot in common with Chiron, as does, well, Jupiter to some extent, but really Sagittarius has a lot in common with Chiron. You're not really known as the wounded healer, but there's a lot of the Chiron mythology that can relate to your own. And Chiron is a bit of a rebel, as are you. And there's a tendency with Sagittarius and Chiron to take your own pain and turn it around and want to help others. It really roots you in your sense of compassion for others and understanding where others come from. It helps you keep your feet on the ground. Actually, any worldly pain you've had, any experiences of pain have helped you become more grounded, and it can pull you out of the stars sometimes, out of the skies, from looking up with that arrow. And because Sagittarius is often questing after the new thing. There's this kind of looking up and forward way that a Sagittarius has of going through the world, and any pain you've experienced helps immediately pull you back down to ground and makes you more aware and in the present moment. And it creates that big heart that people know you to have. You have this big heart and this willingness to see the other person's side. That can happen, and it's a direct result of the pain you've had in the past. So how does that relate to the fifth house? Well, you might have a child. There may be a child of yours who is experiencing some heartache or has decided to become kind of a wounded healer him or herself. So you may have a child who's going through some kind of interesting process and decision-making process. You may become very keenly aware of something your child is going through because you yourself have gone through it. So these are some of the options. And romance is really tricky because you've got Uranus on one end with Mars, Chiron on the other. I do think some of you are dealing with some kind of heartache from the past and possibly present, where you're definitely feeling your emotions. Some emotions are there, but at the same time, they're kind of on tap to be healed. So any difficult emotions that are coming up may also, you're kind of ripe to be healing them. Like as they come up now, you can process and move them on out. So that's one thing. But I do think some of you are dealing with past heartache or some current heartache. But given your lucky year here with Jupiter, I think anybody who's left your life, it's lucky because this is your year and things are really setting up to support you, especially during this time. Trying to think, how do you use this information for your own good? I think if you're getting into a new relationship or a recent relationship, something that's developed recently or now in this time frame of February, they may be a wounded healer type. Like that's sort of who they are. They're wounded, but trying to heal, wanting to heal. You just want to make sure if that person's entered your life that they're not trying to suck all your energy out to heal them. You want to make sure that it's a relationship of equals where they're giving you energy and you feel lifted up by them, not pulled down by them. You don't want like a little kind of Debbie Downer or the male equivalent of that coming into your life and just sucking out all your energy. So be careful of that, I would say. So I say all that not to say, oh, this is all bad news, but I do see some areas where you could get kind of pulled in because of your nature. So just, if you get pulled into a relationship and you notice this person is kind of pulling all your energy, you have a choice as to whether or not you stay. I mean, that's not a tragedy. This is your opportunity to say, no, I don't want to get pulled into that. I don't want that. I want something that is mutually positive and lifts both of us up. You're not my project. I'm not here to heal you. You have an opportunity to show yourself that you can say that and make those choices. So, but then on the other hand, I see a lot of you in love actually forming long-term relationships. It's very interesting. So for some of you, I feel like you're healing your world. Your world is getting healed through a long-term relationship, and this is a very, very important for the ones where this is applying to you, to whom this applies. This is a big relationship, and it's very healing for you. If you have children, and this is a second relationship, so it's not, you're maybe divorced or separated from their mommy and daddy, no matter how old they are. Sometimes the older children have a harder time with the parent moving on. You may have a child who is trying to cope with you moving on, and you may have some stuff around that. You may have a little, if you're having children, you may have a little wounded healer coming into your world, somebody who's meant to be a healer, but who comes in with some pain. And when I say that, we never want to think of our babies coming in with pain. I don't mean they'll actually have physical pain as they're born. I mean they're like an old soul. And if you're an old soul, you've seen a lot. So you come in knowing what it is to have pain because you've been alive before and you've seen the world. And so we all have those old, I think most of us have at least one child who seems very much like an old soul. They just have those eyes that stare at you like they're Methuselah, they're like they're 900 years old. And so you may have a little person coming in who's just seen a lot and experienced a lot, and they're here to be a healer. And healers come in, with certain symptoms, and that's for a separate talk, but so you may be, if you're having a child, you may have a little wounded healer coming in. But they're a very important child. They're very, very important. They have work to do in this world. Let's look at March. March 1, Venus enters Aquarius. March 5, Mercury retrograde. Consider the whole month of March a Mercury retrograde situation. I don't think that's a disaster. It happens 3 times a year. It's just a time to slow down, really, and to reassess. We need that time. It feels really frustrating because we expect to not have to slow down. Our expectations are wrong. And I think Mercury retrograde is a reminder that you can't just run 100 miles an hour unimpeded all the time. You have to slow down. March 6, Uranus enters Taurus. Big deal. It is a big deal. I don't mean that sarcastically. March 6, new moon in Pisces. March 7, Jupiter working with Pluto. March 20th, Sun enters Aries. March 20th, full moon in Libra. March 24th, Jupiter working with the nodes again. March 26th, Venus enters Pisces. March 28th, Mercury direct. March 31st, Mars enters Gemini, which that's directly across from you, coming over your descendant. And Mars is energy, basically. It's just symbolizes energy. It can be male energy, but definitely energy and passion coming in to your 7th house of relationships. So we still see that relationship theme. The new moon is taking place down in your home turf with your family, where you live, where you choose to live, your land, your living situation. So change is afoot in your living situation with your family, where you choose to live, and somewhat psychologically. So this new moon, so psychologically, emotionally, you're getting a new start, and it has to do with family, where you live, roommates, moving, decisions, especially with that Mercury retrograde. A lot of decisions to be made about where you live, who you live with, why. So So some of you may, I think this is a time when a lot of Sagittarius people are thinking about moving. Maybe you already have moved, but there are a lot of decisions around home and who lives there, where to live. And it really is the whole month that this is a topic of discussion, maybe with family members or with people, people you might live with. There's a lot of energy in March going into the area of the 6th house of work, scheduling, health. So some of you are going to feel like you're working a lot in March, that your work level just goes up, there's a lot of energy toward it, and your schedule keeps you hopping. And there are some changes in your schedule and your routine come March. And you'll feel like this is going on for the next 8 years, where your schedule just keeps changing. It's very unpredictable. You have Venus and Mars working together, but they're working in a bit of a square during this month, but kind of like the communication flow between you and others can be good. I think something about your schedule and your health and what you're doing each day is at odds with that kind of easygoing, lovely quality you have when you are communicating, Sagittarius, when you're communicating at your best. Something about the pace of life challenges the way you'd like to be. And I think you're feeling that a little bit, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just like a way you're going to feel during March. Chiron, we kind of discussed that. I think we can leave that one alone. Definitely don't worry about Chiron, but it's always a little interesting with Chiron. There's kind of that old soul thing going on, whether it's in romance or, the baby you're going to have, or the projects you're going to work on have this some depth to them. They're not superficial projects. Whatever work you're getting involved in, maybe on the side as a hobby, has depth to it. And maybe you're taking on the role as a healer. Maybe you've always been that way, but it's a time when maybe there's a renewal of sorts, and maybe you come, with Jupiter in your sign, you're rebranding, you're retooling, you're refining how you market and position yourself, if that makes sense. So interesting times. I think a lot has to do with there's a lot going on in your personal world with your family and your love life and your kids and the people in your world who are close to you. There are many, many changes going on. And and at the same time, this is a big year for you. So you personally are going through a lot of change, but it seems like there's also this other change going on around you. For a variety of reasons, depending on your age and your situation right now. So exciting times, Sagittarius, and I hope you're feeling the kind of beneficence and goodness of Jupiter right now. Take care.